And joining us to discuss now the events from 81 years ago is Maria Ferenc, historian from Jewish Historical Institute. Hello, madam, and welcome to TVP World.
Hello, welcome. Thank you for having me.
So, if you could bring us an overview and explain to also now our Western viewers who might be familiar with the story, but not enough, because we do know that on the 19th of April of 1943, now a group of Jews living inside of the Nazi-created Warsaw Ghetto in Poland courageously began an armed uprising against Hitler's occupying forces. But if you could bring us an overview and the meaning, why did they decided to, well, for such a move, although they knew that they will lose?
Obviously, they were fully aware that there is no chance of winning the revolt. After months of preparations, gathering guns, they were ready when Germans launched the final liquidation of the Warsaw Ghetto, preceded by two previous campaigns, which killed the majority of the ghetto inhabitants. So there was no hope left for those who survived until this moment that there is other fate envisioned for them but death, which fueled their desperation and their determination to make a statement, to oppose Germans, to fight them with any possible means, even though they knew they are going to lose. Obviously, the fighters are a small fraction, small minority among the ghetto inhabitants at that time. We have several thousands of people still living in the ghetto, working for the German factories at this point, and only a couple of hundreds of fighters from Jewish Fighting Organization, a coalition of Zionists and leftist organizations, and Jewish Fighting Union, more to the right. But both those organizations had no more than 200-300 of fighters, maybe 500-600 combined, plus additional people who came into possession of the guns by themselves. So we are still speaking about a small fraction of the inhabitants of the Warsaw Ghetto who nevertheless decided to fight, produce their own guns, and managed to surprise the Germans entering ghetto in the morning of the April 19th.
Incredible. If you could tell us about some of the main characters, the leaders of this uprising, and a little bit about their stories. We've already heard about Marek Edelman. He was one who actually managed to escape. Why so few? Why were there so few who were able to escape?
Obviously, the fighters shared the fate of the ghetto population. Out of those thousands of people who were present at the ghetto on April 19th, majority was deported to the camps where they were murdered immediately or slightly later. Thousands of people were murdered on the spot in the ghetto. Some of them buried alive under rubble or died in the fires because after a few days, when Germans realized that civilian population refuses to leave their bunkers, their hiding places, they decided to burn ghetto house by house by house. So many of those who were hiding in the basements, for example, were faced with a choice, or either to leave and fall into the German hands, or to be burned alive. So we have thousands of people who die in the ghetto, and fighters are among them. It was not their priority to evacuate from the ghetto, and only a handful who miraculously survived the liquidation of the main bunkers of the organization managed to flee on May 8. Some of them in the end of April. But this is essentially the reason why so few fighters survive. Except for Edelman, I think we should mention two other leaders of the Jewish Fighting Organization. The most famous one is obviously Mordechai Anielewicz, who was elected the commander of the Jewish fighting organization, and who supervised the fights in those first days when there were actually major fights on the streets of the ghetto. And the two his deputy commanders were Edelman, and the other one was Itzhak Zuckerman, who managed to survive too, and later emigrated to Israel. So we should also remember Zuckerman's wife, who was a very important figure herself, Tzivia Lubetkin. She emigrated to Israel later too, and she was a very important figure in the Jewish fighting organization. So they are essentially the leaders, although the leadership of the organization comprises also of other people. And on the Jewish Fighting Union, we have Pavel Frankel. The history of these other organizations is much more mysterious. There are many legends and discrepancies in the testimony, but we can point to Frankel as the very important figure in this other organization.
And like you mentioned, we do also have to paint a picture of the reality of people in the Warsaw Ghetto, what they were facing, what kind of atrocities they were facing, and what difficulties they had on their daily basis, to make sure to understand, really, so that such atrocities that happened later on would never be forgotten. Thank you so much for joining us today. Maria Ferenc, historian from Jewish Historical Institute, was our guest today.
Thank you.
Thank you, madam.